Forget everything you thought you knew about global power. Seriously, the old playbooks are out the window. The world isn't dominated by one superpower anymore, or even two. We're in a new, much more complicated reality, and to get a handle on it, we need a whole new way of thinking.
So let's just dive right in with a pretty provocative question that analysts have been tossing around. Are we, right now, living through a world war in slow motion? I mean, think about it. There are no formal declarations, no massive armies lining up on a single battlefield. Instead, it's this constant, grinding confrontation fought on fronts we barely even see in our supply chains, on our social media feeds, and inside the tiny microchips that run our entire lives. You know, for decades, the global map was pretty simple to read. First, it was the two superpowers. Then, for a while, just one, the US. Well, that era is long gone. Today, we find ourselves in a much murkier, less stable dynamic, where three major powers are actively trying to reshape the world in their own image. To help make sense of all this, an analyst named S.M. Raghav came up with this really powerful metaphor, the inequilateral triangle. It's a way to describe the relationship between the US, China, and Russia. So picture a triangle, but the sides aren't equal at all. Each power brings a totally different kind of strength to the table, and that imbalance creates this unstable, constantly shifting rivalry. So let's break that down. Let's really look at the three corners of this triangle. Who are these players, really? And what is it they want? Because understanding their very different strengths is absolutely the key to seeing the bigger picture here. And here's where you can really see that asymmetry in action. The US is all about its massive military and its web of global alliances. China's power, on the other hand, comes from its incredible economic and technological engine. And then you have Russia, which uses its military and its nuclear arsenal to punch way, way above its economic weight. They're not just playing the same game with different tactics. It feels like they're playing fundamentally different games on the very same board. First up, the United States. Its power is, you could say, traditional. It's built on a vast, sprawling network of military bases and alliances like NATO. Right now, its big strategy is what's being called double containment, which is this incredibly ambitious and, frankly, difficult attempt to strategically restrain both China and Russia at the same time. And when you look at the money behind that strategy, well, the numbers speak for themselves. The sheer scale of U.S. military spending just completely dwarfs its two main rivals combined. This is the financial bedrock of its ability to project power anywhere on the globe, and it's a huge piece of this whole inequitable puzzle. All right, now let's pivot to China, because they are playing a totally different game. Their power isn't primarily military, it is fundamentally economic. Through enormous projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, China is literally redrawing the world's trade routes to build influence and pull nations into its orbit. The end goal here? To become a true peer competitor to the United States on the world stage. And finally, that brings us to Russia. Now, its economy can't hold a candle to the others, but it competes fiercely in the military and strategic arena. Its nuclear arsenal puts it on par with the US, and its huge energy resources give it a ton of leverage. This makes Russia a crucial and often a very disruptive player, which often aligns with China to try and shift the global balance of power. Okay, so if this isn't a traditional war with soldiers on some distant front, where exactly is this confrontation happening? Well, the battlegrounds are subtle, they're complex, and a lot of the time, they're pretty much invisible to the naked eye. This whole conflict really unfolds across four main arenas. You've got the economic front, where things like trade deals and sanctions are the weapons. Then there's the tech front, this incredibly high-stakes race for who's going to dominate in AI and microchips. Of course, there's still the classic military jockeying for position. And then, tying it all together, is the diplomatic battle for allies and influence around the world. And this, right here, is the core of how warfare itself has evolved. Instead of formal declarations of war, you get economic sanctions. Instead of frontline battles, you get cyber attacks. The prize isn't just physical territory anymore, it's about controlling the technologies that will define our entire future. The battlefield has literally moved from the physical world into the digital and economic systems that run it. And like the analyst S.M. Rogov says, this is not a static game. He puts it this way: the triangle evolves, changing the potential of each of its sides. I mean, just think about that. A new alliance between two of the players can instantly isolate the third. A sudden breakthrough in AI could make an opponent's military advantage almost obsolete overnight. It's this fluid, constantly adapting struggle. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like some abstract, high-level game of geopolitical chess, right? Something for presidents and generals to worry about. But the reality is, the shockwaves from this great power struggle reach every single one of us, affecting our daily lives in ways that are actually very direct. Just take a look at Europe, for example. It is caught in an incredible geopolitical tug-of-war. For its security, it relies on the US. For a huge amount of its trade, it relies on China. And for a lot of its energy, it relies on Russia. So when these three giants start pulling in different directions, Europe gets stretched thin, caught right in the crossfire. And that translates directly to you and me. This instability, it affects the price you pay for gas and electricity. It determines whether that new smartphone or car you want is even available, or if it's stuck in some supply chain mess halfway around the world. This tech race decides what apps you can use and what products you can buy. And, maybe most importantly, the ever-present risk of a miscalculation spinning out into a real hot war, well, that hangs over everyone's security. This isn't abstract theory, this is real life. Which really leaves us with one final big question. As this slow-motion confrontation continues to reshape our world, are we just spectators watching from the sidelines? Or do the choices we make every single day, what we buy, who we vote for, what we choose to believe, mean that we are all, in our own way, actually players on the board?